Well, the next thing we have on the docket is the draft odds. They are secured. They are final. The season is over. And the Spurs have fell from 3 to 5, Ethan. But it is not the worst thing in the world because we are still one of the only 5 teams in the NBA that has a 10% chance, or excuse me, a double-digit percent chance of the number 1 pick. So here we go. Here are the official odds now that the season is over. So as you can see, if you want to add up the percentages, the Spurs have gone from, well, if you were number 3, still the highest total percentage chance would have been the sixth pick, but now there's a much higher chance of going 6, 7, and 8 than there would have been otherwise. But as you can see, Ethan, it's not drastically different from 3 really at all, other than 0.1%. Or excuse me, I'm off. I was looking at Charlotte. My bad. I was looking at the 4 numbers, even though we're 5. So scratch everything I just said. From 3, though, as you can see, now we have we have a 20% chance, 20+% chance, basically, at both the 6th and the 7th odds. And then you've got the 8% for 8 as well. There's a chance you could even fall to 9, even though that's the least likely scenario. But I could sit here forever and break it all down, Ethan. But the people who are watching on podcast, you see the odds that are up here. You see how it's changed from 3 to 5. And for those of you guys listening on podcast, you'll just have to go to YouTube on this episode to check this one out.
Dude, shout out the NBA for making it the most confusing method of draft odds I've ever seen. Like every year we talk about it, and every year I get more lost.
Yeah, it's definitely. But this is the odds table for the Spurs. But more importantly, as we've mentioned before, Toronto is at number 6. Now, here's this thing: you see the red highlighted odds there for Toronto.
Yep, they have a high percent chance of dropping to 7.
So that's the thing. Those 4 picks, as you see at the top of the page, positions resulting in a trade are highlighted in red. Not all trade swaps shown. This is just straight top 6 protected for Toronto. And as Spencer Galloway says in the comments right now, Toronto tanked so hard to keep that pick. And we'll see if they do, because there's still a chance. And Ethan, I could really sit here and talk about all these odds, but let's just go ahead and run some tankathon sims to kind of give some examples to see how this plays out. And, the first one, we're going to do a couple here just to give some examples. But yeah, let's just go right into it.
This is fun.
So here you go. This isn't even necessarily a bad thing for the Spurs, but see, Toronto even moves up to 3 in this one, and we don't get their pick. For those of you guys listening on podcast, the Spurs just got the number 2 pick in this tankathon sim. This is not the be-all, end-all whatsoever, because in this pick, or in this sim as well, Toronto moved up 3 spots and got the number 3 pick. But that's just an example of how it's not all disastrous for the Spurs. And of course, in this one, Detroit still secured the number 1 pick.
What's crazy about this specific scenario, Jude, is this might be one of the few opportunities where we would actually get Mr. Sarr, because Detroit has Jalen Duren, and I'm not saying they wouldn't take him just because he's, I think, regarded pretty much by most people as a number 1 pick. But it's more difficult for them than it would be for us because of Jalen Duren's kind of one-dimensional style of play. He is a center, a traditional center, a roll to the rim, dunk, block shots center, and he might be a little harder for them to pair with Sarr than, say, for us to pay Sarr with Wembanyama.
I see what you're saying there. I will say, I think, because, unless I'm forgetting, who's the starting 4 for the Pistons? Should I know that? Is that bad of me to not know that?
I don't think so. It's probably like Isaiah Stewart.
That's that I know they play him at the 4 at times. Yeah, I do get what you're saying there, because I think that from what I've seen of Sarr's tape, I think there could be some clogging because of Duren's play style. But because of the fact that Sarr is mobile and can stretch the floor,
true,
I could see them maybe in that position taking that. But they also maybe could take Stephon Castle. Jaden Ivey's demeanor in that last game, man.
Mhm.
I mean, you never know. Maybe they keep him, but that didn't. I mean, the whole team, but really him. Like that's a game where you expect him to take over. You know,
Right.
with Cade Cunningham out, and we've heard rumors all year of how there's kind of been some. I mean, there's been a lot of bad stuff going on in Detroit's locker room, but there's specifically been talk of Jaden Ivey not meshing with the coaching staff as well.
Mm.
But yeah, um, Stephon Castle could be an option there at guard if they elect to try to replace Ivy, if they make a move with him. That's what I was trying to get to. But do you want to do another tankathon here,
Let's
Ethan?
do it, please.
Okay, see
Oh,
here, this isn't the worst scenario
oh, no, it's
actually.
not. Yeah.
And this is I'm glad we got this one. And for those of you guys listening on podcast, the Spurs just got the 7th pick, but Toronto's fell to 8, so they have back-to-back picks and keep Toronto's. This if you had to ask me, Ethan, I would prefer that we just get 2 picks. I would love to have a top 5 pick. I would prefer that if we could get a dream scenario where we get a top 5 pick and keep Toronto's pick. That
Hmm.
would be incredible. But if this happens, Ethan, and we end up getting 7 and 8, I don't want to sound crazy here, Ethan, but I think I'd rather have 7 and 8 than just 4.
I agree 1,000%. And we don't
Or
have to go
even
into
3. 1 or 2 is a
right.
little different, but 3 or from 3 down, I'd be cool with having 7 and 8 over those just because I'd rather take 2 shots on people or have an asset, to use in a trade.
1,000%. I'm not saying this would happen, but getting 7 and 8 as opposed to like 4 has a possibility of drafting, say, a Topic and a Holland, or a Topic and a what's that? What's old boy's name that you like a lot? Matas Buzelis, is that his name?
Mhm, there you go. Yeah.
Like being able to cover both the point guard and a wing would be kind of crazy to do in one draft.
Yeah. I would love to just I think for like I said, the fact that you can take a shot on 2 players in the top 10, we
Hmm.
see how that works out every year. There's guys that are, that fall, there's guys that are picked even, y'all get what I'm saying. In the
Right.
draft, there's hits and misses. So
Hmm.
having 2 picks is just I'd rather have 2 than 1. And then on top of that, if we're going to decide to make a move potentially, this could be something that would be very valuable. Just having 2 first round pick or 2 top 10 picks, like
Hmm.
which is what's going to happen if we get both, I think is invaluable for a numerous amount of reasons.
Couldn't agree more, sir.
But yeah, Ethan, I think that's a good way to kind of wrap up the tankathons there because that just showed one where, and there can be worse ones. There can be ones where we get 7, and then and Toronto jumps up to 3. So as much as those 2 were pretty solid, that's not the be all end all. But still, I like the example of there's a chance we could go up to 2 and then not get the Toronto pick, or there's a chance we could go to 7 and then even keep the Toronto pick at 8. But it just all depends on the lottery gods, Ethan. We were blessed last season, and it's not always super common that it happens 2 years in a row.
Mm, mm. I I agree with everything that you've said thus far, Jude.